Alright, today let's discuss some tips and tricks that I use to get a successful harvest in my garden. Let's take a look at hardening off plants first. We have to understand that hardening off our plants, like I'm going to do with this lettuce, I take advantage of these cool days that are overcast. We've had an awful lot of rain in my area. I grow in zone 7A in Georgia. Excuse me, 7B. I'm in zone 7B in Georgia. So we have had an astronomical amount of rain over the past 3 days. But I'm going to try to harden up these lettuce here, and I'm going to use them as an undercrop to some of my other things in the garden. We did a video not too long ago about trimming our peppers and topping them off to encourage the undergrowth, and this is the one I had chopped off, if y'all see, and the undergrowth is doing its thing, taking off. These black-eyed peas here, I can't seem to find out what might be taking advantage of these luscious leaves or how they're shriveling up. It could be a soil issue. I'm not really sure yet because I can't seem to find any form of pestation on them. No slugs. I come out at 2 o'clock in the morning and take a look at stuff sometime with a flashlight. But a couple other ones in the container garden. Something else, nice little tip or trick, you know, like I say, we've had a lot of rain. Move your buckets around. You know, you see those buckets create a lot of dirt and grime, and it could be clogging up your bucket. So I like to just kind of give mine a little twist to offset them a little bit, make sure there's no kind of blockage going on. That's something I do. Some of my buckets, I drill the holes in on the side of them to encourage the water flow there. So that's one tip that I encourage you doing if you are a container gardener. But I do a little both. I did add my post and stuff to my tomatoes. I went ahead and got the cages on them to do it early. You don't want to end up breaking off some of your plants and stuff. This is starting to bloom. Let's give it a little shake. Probably not ready to be fertilized yet, but it's coming along nicely. Main stalk here, and we'll be suckering that off here eventually, it looks like. But I offset my tomatoes, as you can see in my line here, for two reasons. As they grow, an indeterminate tomato plant here, you can actually run the top of the main stem once it comes off to another one and kind of wrap it around the, you know, areas of your cages here. So you can take this one plant and run it 10 foot. You know, you don't have to grow vertical. You can go across the top of your cages. So I like to add a stick in there, and I like to do it young in the plant's life so I don't destroy the roots. And that way I'll have something to attach to as it's, you know, trellising across the top of my tomato cages here. Take a look at these. Also, I have integrated some that lettuce. I thinned it out a little bit, and I transplanted it into this pot here, and that is going to be the banana pepper. So hopefully it'll grow up and give it some shade. Maybe it'll make it. But see how thick and awesome these tomato vines are coming, and they're starting to produce flowering for their fruit also. So that's cool. But offsetting them, I also help the sunlight once it grows and you got a lot of foliage. I do tend to trim some of my foliage leaves as it gets a little, you know, thicker mass. But offsetting it also will allow it to get the sun correctly, a little bit, you know, less shade in that area. Let's take a look at the raised bed garden real quick. Ooh, pretty, pretty, pretty. Vertical. I'm going vertical on my squash, guys. I don't know if you guys have ever grown vertically on your squash and zucchini plants, but I have learned to grow vertical because of my space. If you have enough space to let yours go across the ground, that's awesome. But a lot of you know, perhaps if you don't know, these particular plants are going to grow like a stalk along the ground, if you let them grow on the ground, you can trim these leaves off as you're going along, and it'll create a nice stalk that just continues growing through your garden. But actually, if you take it and zip tie it up on a stake, you can grow it vertically. So it will take a little time once you get your plants established to give you a nice stalk. Let's see if I can get a picture of it. A nice stalk here to allow you to grab that plant to continue staking it to grow vertically. Also, I did this the other day. I trimmed off one of my tomatoes and just stuck it in the bed there, because I will have a lot of free space in this area if I'm growing these vertically. Keep trimming the leaves off as it's growing, because your harvest is going to be on the end of your squash plant anyway. And then I'll have some okra right here. I might just come right through there with that lettuce I showed you earlier. It may get a lot of shade from this, and a little bit of shade from the okra, and some shade from this tomato, because the sun will be rising behind me and setting in front of the bed, so it may produce it. If it doesn't get too hot and starts to bolt, we'll see. Over here on these black-eyed peas also, see this one here isn't being touched or damaged. These things are cool. They'll open and close up. They're so cool. Open and close up. Now these are some young squash here that I will eventually take those vertical once they get the stems growing a little bit better. This one here's got a nice stem. Also, I noticed on this one, you see that your squash are root, you know, so that vine, if you let it grow on the ground, will continue just rooting. So it's got a, you know, root right here, but I'm going to grow it vertical. I hadn't had a lot of pest problems yet this year. I did see a few white flies the other day, and I made a simple organic mixture of oil, water, and trying to check it real quick, kind of lost my train of thought, and a little dishwashing detergent, and that will warn off the white flies. So, little tips and tricks, guys. You can grow your squash vertically if you like. You can stagger your container pots so they can get the ample amount of sunlight and nothing gets blocked. And make sure if you get a heavy rain, we've gotten like 8 inches over this past week here. Make sure you pick those pots up and adjust them a little bit. So, hope y'all have a good weekend. It's Friday. Night Rider. I'm out.